Tonight, a murder investigation is underway after a Scottish couple are found dead in their home in France. They'd lived there for 10 years and were popular with locals. Also making the headlines, the new mum who says her life was put at risk after a medical swab used during the birth of her daughter was left inside her for 8 days.
I've had a cut and I've had stitches and I've gave birth, but I really wasn't expecting to not be able to walk and to be hunched over and in that much pain.
More support for women entrepreneurs after claims that their exports could be worth billions to the Scottish economy. And in sport, Brendan Rodgers expresses his delight after Celtic escape a fans' ban for their Champions League match away to Bayern Munich. I'm John Mackay. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. A couple from Edinburgh have been found dead at their home in the southwest of France. Police in Villefranche-de-Rouergue have launched a murder investigation into the deaths of Andrew and Dawn Searle. They retired to the area around 10 years ago and were said to be popular in the local community. Here's our senior reporter, Gordon Cree.
At the Searles' home in Les Pesquias today, forensic officers and detectives continued their work. They're trying to establish what happened to Andrew and Dawn Searle, who were in their 60s. Officials say it's clearly a homicide. A neighbour is believed to have found a horrific scene inside the house after going to check on them when they failed to turn up for a dog walk.
It's surprising to know that next to us there are people who have lost their lives.
They regularly invited every year the whole neighbourhood to come and have a drink at their place and have fun together. So they knew a lot of people.
Andrew Searle spent more than 20 years at Standard Life, where he was a very senior investigator into financial crime. That included looking at bribery and corruption. One line of inquiry for detectives in France now is whether that work had anything to do with his death. Throughout the day, more details about the couple have emerged. They've been together for around 10 years and celebrated their first wedding anniversary in September. Between them, they have a number of adult children. They attended the wedding of Andrew's son Tom in India last year.
If you're sure.
While Dawn's son, Callum Kerr, is a successful actor and country singer who's appeared in Hollyoaks and the American series Monarch alongside Susan Sarandon.
Okay.
Dawn lost her father last month and was in Scotland for his funeral just 2 weeks ago. The Foreign Office says it's providing support to the family, while in France, what is clearly a major and high-level investigation goes on. Gordon Cree, STV News, Edinburgh.
A Glasgow mum is speaking out after a medical swab used during the birth of her daughter was left inside her for 8 days, putting her life at risk. Aisha McCracken has accused the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital of medical negligence, claiming her concerns were repeatedly ignored by staff. She fears the incident could have resulted in a serious infection, potentially leaving her newborn without a mum. Caitlin Hutchison has more.
When we found out we were pregnant, it was a dream come true. It just turned into an absolute nightmare after she was born.
Smiling through the pain in the hours and days following her daughter's birth, Aisha was convinced something wasn't right, but was sent home after 5 days despite her complaints of severe pain and a foul odour.
My husband kind of quickly noticed, like, why are you in so much pain? That can't be normal. You know, yeah, I've had a cut and I've had stitches and I've gave birth, but I really wasn't expecting to not be able to walk and to be hunched over and in that much pain. I had mentioned to midwives that I was assured that I had just given birth and it was normal to be in pain.
8 days later, she was shocked to discover a missed piece of medical gauze left inside her body, soaked in bodily fluid and putting her at risk of infection.
The minute the doctor took the swab out, I burst out into tears. I looked at my husband and I just said, why me? I knew in my gut something was wrong. I was right the whole time and I was dismissed by healthcare professionals. It's quite sad actually, because it's now made me realise that I don't think we want any more children, because I don't think that I could go through the emotional side of that again, it really has traumatised me. I've been left with postnatal depression, PTSD. I'm now on mental health medication on quite a high dose. I think it's taken a massive toll on mine and Sophie's relationship at the very beginning. I understand human error can happen, but that should never have been a mistake that should have happened.
Recent years have seen an increase in the amount of compensation paid out to patients by health boards, while healthcare staff warn they're dealing with increased workload pressures post-COVID.
The pressure that we're putting our staff under is leading to moral injury, people are burning out, and that leads to less people who are coming into our health service and being able to work. And this is a vicious cycle. We need action. We need delayed discharges to come down. We need to see A&E waiting times come down. 1 in 6 people in Scotland who are on a waiting list, that needs to come down as well. And then we start to see this relief of pressure.
NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde have apologised and say they're implementing new systems to prevent future incidents, including better reporting tools in all birthing suites and enhanced staff training. The Health Board is currently reviewing her case. Meanwhile, the Health Secretary says health boards must learn from these situations and make improvements.
She's a stunning image of her dad, so she is.
A beautiful baby girl who Aisha says is worth all of the pain and trauma, but that she should never have had to go through in the first place. Caitlin Hutchison, STV News, Glasgow.
To other stories, and the murderer Luke Mitchell has launched a court challenge against a decision not to grant him parole. Mitchell, who killed his 14-year-old girlfriend Jodie Jones in Dalkeith in 2003, claims the process to reject his application for release was unfair. The parole board has argued his case is misconceived. The judge, Lady Haldane, will issue her ruling at a later date. The long-awaited new Arran ferry is to be taken out of service later this month for repairs. The planned work in the Glens Sannox will include the replacement of part of the anchor mechanism. It will go into dry dock on the 23rd of February for a week. It will be replaced by the Isle of Arran ferry, which had been moved to the Mull route. Teachers in Glasgow are to take strike action in a row over the council's cuts to education. The first day of action will be Thursday, the 20th of February. The EIS union says 300 teaching posts have been cut. Glasgow City Council say they are aware of the outcome. The Scottish Government says it will offer businesses led by women more support to sell abroad. That's after a study suggested that if firms run by women exported at the same rate as male counterparts, it could boost the Scottish economy by up to £10 billion over the next 2 years. Entrepreneurs say they need help navigating the barriers, as Lewis Mickey reports.
Gemma Stewart runs her own business selling digestive supplements. Business is booming in the UK and she has interest abroad, but she's had to scale back her sales overseas.
We did a trial of exporting to Ireland last year and we learned lots along the way. So there's a lot of red tape, regulations, and it takes up a huge amount of time as a small business. There's lots of barriers that female entrepreneurs face, particularly around funding and around getting the right mentorship and sponsorship at the right time for their businesses. There's definitely missed opportunities that I think everybody's trying to plug those gaps and help build the economy. It's
a familiar story. A new study has found that if businesses run by women exported at the same rate as their male counterparts, it could add up to £10 billion to the Scottish economy over the next 2 years. Brexit and the threat of tariffs from the US are hurdles, and the report highlights extra caring responsibilities and male-dominated overseas trade missions as issues. The Scottish Government is pledging extra support. This business in East Lothian produces serums, oils and lip balms, all a bit new to the Minister for Business, Richard Lockhead.
I've got one for you to take away. We are not yet exporting, despite we've been approached by a lady in Scandinavia who wanted to go into partnership with us. There's a global Scot in the US who's very keen to take us to America, and we've also been approached by a company in the UAE. The support that's out there is piecemeal, or it seems to be that you can go through different conduits to access support, and so that there's not really one definitive way of accessing support.
We are going to work with female-led organisations involved in business to help encourage them to take up the support that's there for exporting. We're going to ensure there's more women involved in trade missions overseas, which is all about exporting as well. So there's a number of practical steps we can take.
For these businesses, they feel the world is their oyster, but they're going to need more help to broaden their horizons. Lewis Mickey, STV News. News.
You are?
Scotland's farmers say they're prepared to intensify their opposition to inheritance tax changes announced by the UK government. Thousands across the UK have already taken to the streets in their tractors in protest. As the sector gathered for the Scottish National Farmers Union conference, there was a warning that changes to the tax system could have a catastrophic impact in the industry. Here's Hayley Bomber.
A lot has changed since the National Farmers Union held its last conference. Scenes like these across the country have been replicated again and again since the UK government announced its plans to change inheritance tax.
Look at the camera, come forward.
Today, the industry body elected a new president and 2 vice presidents. Their top priority, to have the plans reversed.
There's lots of tractor rallies and various protests, and these will continue. At the same time, we need to get in front of government ministers and politicians and thump home the message that we need to discuss this in full, because as it stands, their suggestions will have a catastrophic effect in our industry.
Government haven't thought through the implications of what they're trying to impose, and I do fear for family farms. Going forward, it could really finish them and put them under real financial pressure going forward.
I want to assure you that you've got a First Minister who, in representing a farming constituency, understands the importance of farming to the rural economy.
The sector has welcomed a new £14 million fund and the return of more than £40 million of deferred payments. Holyrood say they stand with farmers against the UK government's plans and have also blamed them for failing to secure longer-term funding.
Farming support has not been uprated, and we've got to work with the UK government to have a funding settlement that reflects the much larger proportion of land in Scotland that is part of the land of the United Kingdom, and that would obviously have a bearing on the way in which that budget is calculated.
The UK government say they're committed to supporting farmers through their £5 billion plan, but they won't be moved on their plans to change inheritance tax. Today, the First Minister also ruled out the reintroduction of lynx after 4 were illegally released in the Highlands last month.
I just want to make it clear the government will not be supporting the introduction of the lynx. That would not contribute towards the creation of the balance that we need to create within the rural economy.
Further protests against the inheritance tax proposals will continue in London on Monday. Hayley Bomber, STV News.
It's been a home for theatre making, live performance and teaching for more than 60 years, but Cumbernauld Theatre now says its future is at risk. It has been denied a multi-year funding bid from Creative Scotland. The team are now calling on the community for support. Tara Fitzpatrick reports.
Every week, aspiring young performers come to this Lanarkshire studio to play games and create theatre.
I like the ability to gain confidence from doing this stuff because I'm usually very quiet, but in here I'm a completely different person.
When I came here, I wasn't confident at all, and now I can talk to people and I'm able to make friends, and I think that's very important for people's mental health as well.
I quite like coming here after school and express myself. I hope to do it when I leave high school.
But all this could be at risk after Creative Scotland rejected Cumbernauld Theatre Trust's multi-year funding bid.
So this decision has come as a complete surprise to us, and we are mortified at the outcome of a really rigorous process of application of materials. The funding is really essential for us to continue to operate as a producing theatre. We make new work, employing writers, directors, composers. We're engaging with our community in the process. We just won't be able to carry on without it.
They can live their lives with style and grace.
The theatre says it is now at risk of full closure, putting 44 jobs in danger and leaving the next generation of artists in the lurch. And those who've benefited from the theatre in the past say it's an essential launchpad for creative careers.
It's kind of perpetual motion thing, and the kids always loved it. So you wind it up like this. As our career went on, we got bigger and bigger kettles. In fact, they were eventually this size. And that's kind of a little bit like your progress in the theatre. If we hadn't had Cumbernauld and smaller places like that, we probably couldn't have played the Palladium in London. Yeah, let's get behind them and make sure that the people of Cumbernauld have a facility that's supported and they don't have to come away into Glasgow to come to a show.
The Cumbernauld Theatre Trust has a rich 60-year history and welcomes over 40,000 artists and audience members annually. Just 4 years ago, they moved into this state-of-the-art theatre space, thinking it would be the start of a brighter future. But due to the decision from Creative Scotland, they now say that's in jeopardy, which is why they're calling for a U-turn. A spokesperson for Creative Scotland said not all applications were successful in meeting the criteria, but that these organisations would have access to a transition fund for support.
How's everyone doing?
For these young people, working with Cumbernauld Theatre has been transformational.
I think young people need to have that chance to express themselves, because people's confidence in people's skills in talking and communicating is priceless for young people.
Honestly, it just feels so comforting. It feels like family almost, and it's just such a good way to express yourself through the week.
North Lanarkshire Council say the decision is extremely disappointing. The theatre are due to meet with Creative Scotland next week and hope they can keep the curtain up for years to come. Tara Fitzpatrick, STV News, Cumbernauld.
Rahman is here with the Sport Cup weekend. Even starts tonight, and poor Ronnie's out in the cold while you're still in.
Poor me, stuck with you inside here. It is the Scottish Cup weekend. Fifth round ties. The holders Celtic are in action tomorrow, and we've been speaking to Brendan Rodgers today over their Champions League fixture.
Your window to sport. C.R. Smith sponsors STV Sport.
Good evening. Brendan Rodgers has expressed his delight after Celtic escaped a ban on their supporters attending their Champions League match away to Bayern Munich later this month, but fears his calls for the use of pyrotechnics to stop may not be listened to. At Rangers, Philippe Clement says he wanted to do more business in the January transfer window and admits finances dictated why they'll need to wait until the summer for Lyle Cameron to join the club. When a smoke bomb was thrown during Celtic's Champions League match against Aston Villa, fans feared the worst. With the club serving a one-match suspended ban for the use of pyrotechnics earlier in the campaign, there were serious concerns supporters would be locked out of the Allianz Arena in Munich. Celtic pleaded with UEFA the action of one fan shouldn't punish thousands of others. UEFA agreed.
That's great. That was the big worry for me when I spoke a couple of weeks ago, or maybe even only last week. So I was concerned that they wouldn't be able to travel because they're such a massive part of this club. I'm not sure they're going to listen to me, if I'm honest. So whoever that may be. So, but let's hope.
At Rangers, as the team prepare for their Scottish Cup tie against Queen's Park on Sunday, Philippe Clement explained why Dundee midfielder Lyle Cameron, who's agreed a pre-contract to join the club in the summer, didn't sign for the Ibrox side in the January window.
That's a financial decision, of course. We all wanted him to come as fast as possible, but it was not possible.
How well equipped do you think your squad is to compete in the second half of the season?
We as a club wanted more. We talked about that. At the end, we didn't achieve all the goals that we wanted.
Rangers will face a Queen's Park side which sits fifth in the Championship. They've won 3 of the last 9 games across all competitions.
We've actually been playing well lately, but the results haven't been going our way in some decisions with referees. So I think it's just trying to create that sort of mindset that there is opportunities there to hurt Rangers, but there are also opportunities to try and stifle them as well.
Well, as we said, the 5th round of the Scottish Cup gets underway tonight as Ayr United take on Hibs. Ayr boss Scott Brown says his players will need to have the game of their lives if they are to progress, while David Gray says he expects a stern test against the Championship leaders. Live now to Ronnie Charters, who's at Somerset Park. Ronnie.
A bitterly cold Somerset Park at that, Rahman, for arguably the tie of the round here in the Scottish Cup. High-flying Ayr United going great guns in the Championship up against a rejuvenated Hibs side under David Gray, which sees them sit 5th in the Scottish Premiership. For Scott Brown's honest men, it's a great run of results so far in all competitions. 8 games without defeat, 7 of those winning as well. And of course that added element of Scott Brown coming up against one of his former clubs in Hibernian. And in terms of David Gray's men themselves, also on a great run of form. No defeats in 10 in all competitions, which saw them soar up the Scottish Premiership table. And in confidence going into this one that they can have a deep run in the competition. Let's now hear from both camps, starting with the home side.
You've got to relish these opportunities and make sure that we bring our A game, because we need to make sure that we play the game of our lives to compete against them, because they have got some top quality players, and Boiler's still playing at top level as well. And fantastic movement. Dwight Gale as well that scores goals. So for us, we need to make sure that we're switched on for 90 minutes and not take this game for granted.
The expectation on us to go down there and win, because we are doing so well in the league, because we are a Premier League team, but that counts for absolutely nothing if you don't turn up and play at the best of your levels and the best of your ability. But the players are, again, in a really good place at the moment, and we are determined to make sure we keep this momentum going and feel-good factor going and stretch our unbeaten run.
Well, ahead of tonight's match, Hibs' latest annual accounts have revealed a loss of almost £7.2 million. That almost double the losses of the previous year. The figures were due to a number of factors, say the club, including managerial sackings and poor recruitment strategy. Hibs will certainly be hoping for better results on the field than they have been off the field. To kick off 7:45 here at Somerset Park. It is Ayr United versus Hibs in the Scottish Cup.
Ronnie Chatters, thanks very much for that. Well, there are all of the fifth round ties taking place over 4 days. Holder Celtic host Raith Rovers. Livingston, who are third in the Championship, are at home to Cove Rangers from League One. On Sunday, Dunfermline Athletic are away to Aberdeen. And on Monday night, St Mirren host Hearts. To rugby, and Gregor Townsend says Scotland's Six Nations showdown with Ireland doesn't have any extra needle for his side this weekend, claiming they'll treat the match like any other in this championship. Townsend has made 3 changes to the team that defeated Italy as the Scots aim to land a long-awaited win over the Irish, as Jamie Borthwick now reports.
Putting in the preparation, hoping to recreate a moment like this. In the 8 years and 10 meetings since Ireland have held the upper hand. But Gregor Townsend says if that's added some needle to the rivalry, it's not coming from the Scots.
Yeah, I don't think there is. Well, if there is, it's just the same as any other game. I think teams want to build up something to provide extra motivation. So maybe it's more on the Irish side or the Irish media side that there's this rivalry or needle to give them extra motivation on why they want to win again. Obviously they've won this fixture a number of times. We respect Ireland a lot, admire what they've done over the last few years, but it doesn't stand out as a needle game for us.
After the 5-try victory over Italy on opening weekend, Scotland make 3 changes for the match this Sunday, with Tom Jordan, Jack Dempsey and Rory Sutherland earning starts. Ireland got off the mark by beating England in Dublin, and they bring in the experienced pair of Peter O'Mahony and Robbie Henshaw for the trip to Murrayfield.
Certainly a good few years ago we didn't have the same success that maybe we've had in recent times. So we know how difficult it is. They'll be, we know the motivation they'll have. They won't need any, but we obviously got internal motivation this year in terms of what we're trying to do.
So much hinges on this. An 11th consecutive defeat to the Irish would put Scotland back in the position of playing catch-up for the Six Nations. But if they can finally get one over on their Celtic rivals, the door would swing open for a charge on the championship. Jamie Borthwick, STV Sport, Murrayfield.
Your window to sport. C.R. Smith sponsors STV Sport.
Scotland against Ireland should be a cracker, John. It'll also be a real physical contest. You know why I think that?
Why?
Jamie told me.
Well, thank you. The weekend weather with Sean.
Wet by the coast, with a high chance of sun and splashing. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Very good evening to you. The further west you are, better news for the weekend because we'll hang on to the best of the brighter weather. The further east you are, more chance of a little bit of more cloud and risk of a few light drizzly showers. Now tonight another cold, frosty one to come, especially across much of Ayrshire, Lanarkshire, across Argyll, Stirlingshire. Temperatures locally down to about -2, -3 degrees Celsius. Some patches of cloud central and eastern areas, keeping temperatures just slightly above freezing here. But for many of us, a cold, frosty start tomorrow. Plenty of sunshine throughout the day, but there will be patches of cloud across central and eastern areas. As I say, the further west you are, got the best chance of hanging on to sunshine throughout the day. Top temperatures, like today, we're rising up to highs of about 4 to 6 degrees Celsius. Let's take a closer look at what's in store tomorrow afternoon. This little tour is going to take us roughly from around Islay over to the likes of Kincardine and also Falkirk. So for the likes of Lochgilphead, Jura, Islay, Inveraray, Kintyre, Butte, Millport, and as we head into Kilbirnie, Paisley, Dumbarton here, we will have some brighter sunny spells. Temperatures about 5 degrees. More chance of more cloud, as I say, the further east we go. So by the time we get into Motherwell, Wishaw, Lanark, Bathgate and Falkirk, here there will be a little bit more cloud and the risk of a few light drizzly showers. Eastern parts, we always hang on to more cloud on Sunday with the risk of drizzle. Brightest weather once again in the far west.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And that's it from your STV News from all of us here. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend.